Sports Carnival broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studio, powered by the Recovery Room, is here with you on a very, very upset Milwaukee morning, a very, very dour Wisconsin post-sports morn. The Milwaukee Bucks, Matt, have been eliminated by the Miami Heat in 5 games. Bucks blew a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter, lost the game in overtime, and I don't want to be this guy, but I am. The Miami Heat were a terrible fucking matchup, and I never, ever, ever wanted to see the Bucks play this team. I had this sneaking suspicion Jimmy Buckets was going to do exactly what he did before the series started, and it turned out to be proved exactly right. We've got 2 different poll questions going this morning. One is about those Bucks. Jump aboard the Twitter feed at the Sports Carney. The other is on our Facebook group page, and Matt, that'll have to do with the Green Bay Packers and what we think they should do with tonight's NFL draft picking at 13. Aaron Rodgers had his introductory press conference with New York yesterday. We'll be talking about that. We've already mentioned the draft. We've got a lot to cover. Joe Daguanno, our Green and Gold insider, jumping aboard about 8:30 this morning, will give us his take on not only Rodgers' press conference, but what it is that he thinks the Packers should do with this year's NFL draft. I'm sure Joe has got for us his now more coordinated mock draft. Joe used to do a number of mock drafts from like March until the draft. He was basically coming up with different mocks. Now we sort of centered into one format, one mock draft per season. So we'll get his take on what the Packers should do with tonight's draft. Matt, let me just start off with that Bucks loss, 16-point lead, fourth quarter. They were up 14 in game 4. They lose again.
Yeah, I was going to say, was it deja vu or like a whole repeat all over again? I couldn't believe how it went down. Obviously, Jimmy Buckets showed up. The play he made in regulation to send it to overtime was crazy. I don't understand Budenholzer not using timeouts at all. It was just the way it went down. And at the end, too, I don't know why Grayson Allen had the ball in his fucking hand. Or I'd like to call him J.R. Grayson, or what do I like to call him? J.R. Allen. Not that he's J.R. Smith. The whole thing with the Cavaliers back in the day when he didn't know what the points were. Get what I'm laying down there?
Oh, when he got the rebound underneath from...
It's similar, but not the same. Is where I'm kind of going along those lines.
No, it's not his fault. Giannis had the ball and Chris Middleton had the ball. Don't fucking look. Grayson Allen, it's not his fault he didn't get up the last shot. Giannis is making $50 million a year.
I agree with you.
Chris Middleton's making $35 million a year. It's not Grayson Allen's fault. If
they should have kept the ball in their hands, is what I'm saying.
And like the timeout. Okay. A lot to unpack there. I see what you're saying. I don't know if I see what you're saying. The comp to me isn't relative, but in this particular case, look, the Bucks have a lot of questions, and I like that Rob Dogg's checking in. He's like, Dave, what now? The Knicks made it further than the Bucks, and I don't want anything to do with the Heat. Look, the Bucks have major question marks, and I asked you guys after Game 3, Bucks lost, and it was 2-1. How concerned should the Bucks be? I told you I was extremely concerned. Mm-hmm. Mostly we thought, the Bucks can probably win the series because on paper they've got a better team. The Heat were fucking almost eliminated in the play-in game. So we thought the Bucks could win this series. I've just never felt good about it. Giannis going down in the first game, that was obviously a big tipping point, right? He was out in the first, second quarter with that back contusion. And really since that point, the Bucks have been playing on trepidous ground. Now we see this team completely collapse 2 games in a row. I mean, that's 30 combined point lead between a 14 and a 16-point lead. And we see them lose both games. Now there's going to be some serious, and I mean serious introspection needed, which is why I'll roll out this morning's poll question on Twitter early. What do the Bucks do now? The options that I put up here for you to vote on: run it back with this team, trade Chris Middleton because he still has some semi-prime years and has got some movability, or blow this thing up but keep Giannis. Those are the ways that you can vote on this morning's poll question. So go to our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney and weigh in on this. I will tell you, Mike Schmidt joined the show yesterday. NSU Wolves head coach. We talked about Mike Budenholzer. We were both talking about Budenholzer. I had mentioned to you yesterday, if the Bucks lost this game, I think they should blow it up.
Yep, I agree with you.
I think one of the things they need.
I don't know if I agree with you on the whole blowing up thing. I guess I need to know how big of a blow up are you going?
I'm thinking firing Mike Budenholzer. One.
I agree with that right off the bat.
Trading Chris Middleton, 2.
Okay, so how more extreme do you want to go?
Pretty extreme. Okay. I think that you really need to look at this. Bobby Portis is a nice player. He might have some. He might have some interest in the league. Trade him. Grayson Allen's gone. Get rid of him too. You need to really, really, really take a hard look at this team and what Giannis is and what he has left. Because as a guy is now approaching his early 30s, he's not there yet, 28 years old, right? you need to max this thing out. Like the prime year for an NBA player goes until about 33, right? Like that's about the end of the major prime. LeBron's the only guy that's really gone over that to any significant degree. Kareem was there too, but that's the average, right? 33, 34 is kind of like your last great prime years. Okay, that means that they've got a window. Giannis is signed up. He's not going anywhere. He signed that Supermax deal, so you've got Giannis, right? I think the team needs to look at major changes. The one guy that I would keep here with Giannis is Drew Holiday. Like, so I'd keep Drew Holiday. He and Giannis can go together. Drew's a great defender. I would get rid of Budenholzer. And I know that he's gotten this team a championship. Multiple times he's been coach of the year in the NBA.
Yep.
But you've got to
coach this last 2 games.
Well, he has had many issues with me throughout the years. Matchup adjustments. The timeout thing is something that I hadn't really thought he was going to be that bad at. But the Bucks had multiple timeouts in overtime with 8 seconds left. Call time out. Call time out. Reset this thing. Get your guys. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Also, on that inbounds play, Giannis has got to be covering Jimmy Butler. Where's Brook Lopez on the court?
And none of it made any sense to me at all.
Right. So there is definitely in my mind a real need to trade not only Chris Middleton, but fire Mike Budenholzer. And I know that this morning, this might be a lot of emotions just leading in from last night. It was a late game. It goes into overtime. We get up early. I'm still waking up like, hey, man, what the fuck? That's why I don't know if it necessarily has to go this way, but there has to be major changes. And listen, management, from what we understand, a couple of seasons ago, before the Bucks ended up winning the championship, had to kind of talk to Mike Budenholzer about these adjustments and like what they wanted to see him make during games. Listen, I understand that not every year you win a championship. Giannis said the same thing when asked by Eric Branch if this season was a failure. He's like, do you get a promotion at your job every year? No? Okay, is that a failure? He said Michael Jordan played 15 years. He won 6 championships. Were the other 9 years a failure?
Right.
And if the answer is no, then no, it wasn't a failure of a season. But major disappointment, a major disappointment. And you can't just put it all on a coach. That's why I think this team needs to make a holistic change. And I like Middleton a lot, and I give him a ton of credit for being that Robin-esque player to a Giannis as a Batman and helping that team get a championship. But, dude, this thing has got to change. I mean, and probably in a pretty big way.
Well, and I guess the other thing with that going forward is they had so much possibilities going forward. You had Giannis possibly being an MVP. You had Brook Lopez up there for Defensive Player of the Year. You had Bobby Portis up there for Six-Man Player of the Year. So they had some possible hardware that they obviously didn't come through on. So the team was there. Going forward, you look at
Six-Man been awarded yet, though? I don't think that.
Yeah, it did.
It did. Who got that?
It went on Thursday or Friday to, I think, the kid from the Celtics. I'll look it up in a second.
Okay.
But looking at right now, obviously, Lopez is a free agent, so that, and then Middleton has that player option going forward. I can see that. I guess my thing, and how extreme of a blow up do you want to do when you have Giannis in his prime years? So I can see getting rid of the coach, maybe doing some other little tinkering around, but I just don't see them blowing up the entire roster, in my opinion.
Well, they're not going to be able to get rid of 15 guys, but they can get rid of a lot.
You get what I'm laying down.
Yeah, I do. I think that they need to make major changes. Foreman's checking in here. The Heat went small, and Bud said he took out Lopez and went small too. Apparently, he can't coach his own team. Look, Mike Budenholzer can coach. He's been to multiple Eastern Conference Finals. He's been to a championship. He's won a championship. But there does become a time in which, and this is unfortunate, sometimes the voice in the locker room needs to change in order for the entire thing to change. Not that Mike Budenholzer isn't going to get another job and couldn't be another great coach in another situation. Who knows? Maybe the Bucks just kind of do a coach swap. Mike Budenholzer goes to Toronto.
Well, that's what I was saying, Nick Nurse. I love that poll that you said the other day. I thought that was great.
Comes down to the Bucks. I don't know. There's a lot that needs to be unpacked with this, and that's why working through this, Malcolm Brogdon.
Malcolm Brogdon. Yep.
Okay, former Milwaukee Buck. There you go. All right, close in the running, though. Bobby Portis was second. We've got a Facebook user that's jumping in here and asking or proposing trade Chris Middleton for Damian Lillard.
Alec Gillespie.
Alec Gillespie. Trade Chris Middleton for Damian Lillard to pair with Giannis. I don't know that you could get the Blazers to part with Lillard for just Middleton. I understand the salaries would actually kind of work. Lillard makes in the high 40s, though, and I think Middleton's around that 30 range.
It's a 40-year option.
A what?
Middleton's got a $40 million option for next year.
All right. So if the Bucks, if he signs that option and then they trade him to the Blazers, that could possibly work. Damian Lillard doesn't want to commit to Portland long term, right? Like he realizes that he wants to win now a championship, and this guy's been all about Portland for his career. So I don't hate that. The Bucks would probably have to sweeten that, and there might be better trades out there. But listen, if a guy like Dame Lillard wants to come to Milwaukee and pair with Giannis, which a lot of players apparently do, because Giannis is an unselfish, selfless kind of superstar that plays defense and offense, right? He's not just a one-trick pony. That wouldn't be a bad trade at all. I mean, I would definitely sign up to have Drew Holiday, Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo on the court at the same time. That's not a bad idea. I don't know if, again, the Blazers would go for that, but I don't know if there's going to be a lot of better packages out there for D. Lillard because, again, he carries a huge salary. That's something that we'll have to dig into when I'm looking at a whole bunch of players and, where they might go based upon how their season ends.
Right.
For the Bucks, it's still really fresh right now. And if you're a Bucks fan, it's going to be fresh. Again, go to our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney and let us know what the Bucks you think should do after this loss. Jump to our Facebook group page. Matt and I have got another poll question for you there about the Packers and the NFL draft and what it is that we think the Packers should do with this NFL draft. Let's take a really quick break. We'll come back. I want to put up that mock draft again that we saw. I want to get your takes on where you think players might be jostling around now. And again, a reminder, if you want to come and hang out with us, watch at least the first 15 or so picks of the NFL draft. The Packers pick at 13. The Jets will pick at 15. Come and hang with us at the Recov tonight. I've already made a promise, Matt, that I'll be back downstairs. We'll be hanging out. I start bartending at 11, but I'll be back down there tonight. If you guys want to come and watch it, it'll be a lot of fun. Recovery Room, 7th and Mississippi Street. We'll come back, Matt. I want to get some of Aaron Rodgers' quotes up here from yesterday's press conference because it sure sounds like this fucking guy is all in now that he's with the Jets. The only thing bigger to bump this story out was the Bucs loss. So stay tuned. We're back in about 40 seconds.
What can I say? The Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi Street is not only my favorite bar in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, it's my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Breakfast served 8 to noon, Saturday and Sundays, daily specials, incredible cocktails, and the best damn wait staff in the entire city. My buddy Matt knows how to treat you right, and that's why when you go to the Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi, you're always going to have a great time and a great meal with a great cocktail. So if you haven't been in a while, or perhaps you're just regular and you want to stop in again, make it a thing. I'm there every single week. How about you?
And welcome back, Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studio, powered by the Recovery Room. Want to send a shout out, Matt, to our friends over at Contractor Supply of both West Salem and Baraboo. If you are a really seasoned Joe, somebody that can go to your house and basically hook everything up, new windows, new stairs, decks, then you're going to go to Contractor Supply and find a better deal on lumber. And if you're one of the countless, and I think they've got 1,100 local customers just here as far as construction companies go, you know where to get your supplies. Contractor Supply of West Salem and Baraboo. Again, Contractor Supply, welcome aboard. Our good buddy Kyle Cable, One Trust Real Estate, is the official real estate partner of the program. And if you want to make a friendly wager on tonight's NFL draft, maybe you've got a futures bet on the Milwaukee Bucks or the fuck they're going to do with their team now, BetUS.com, enter promo code Carnival, and pick yourself up 125% free play deposit match. Joe V is checking in this morning, man, and he's going back to our Bucks conversation that we started off with. The Bucks need to nurse their wounds. Nick Nurse is now an available coach.
Yep.
I think I might take a look at it if I was the Bucks.
For sure. I guess the other thing that I was going to throw out about the Bucks, because I had one more for you, and I really like this, even though he's not our favorite owner of any professional sports, but now that Jimmy Haslam is a minor owner of the Bucks, he usually comes with a pretty big wallet or purse. So depending if they want to get more into the luxury tax, that might end up being a benefit for the Bucks going forward with having Jimmy Haslam's pockets to, get some more talent coming over to the Bucks in the offseason, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, he owns a 25% stake of the team, so you never know. The coach, fortunately, doesn't count against a salary cap, so that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's more money hopefully coming into the Bucks way with having Jimmy Haslam being part of the ownership group.
You know what? That's decent. The Bucks are, they're wading into that luxury tax water anyways.
Right.
But and again, with the NBA structure the way it is, it's not a hard cap like the NFL, but it's a pretty hard cap. You can only acquire players within a certain amount, and you can't just go out and sign certain players for more money than you have available. Like, so if the Bucks, even if they wanted to go into the luxury tax area,
right,
if they were already at the cap, right, like at the actual salary cap, they couldn't sign a free agent more than a mid-level exception, a veterans exception, or a minimum contract. So even if they wanted to and say, hey, we'll pay the luxury tax, it doesn't work that way. So if they were at the cap and there was a free agent that wanted 40, they couldn't give it to them.
Okay.
So it's not quite like the NFL, but it's kind of like the NFL. What the NBA does do is give you the opportunity to keep and retain your own players by virtue of giving them more salary than another team could give them. in incentivization to teams like the Milwaukee Bucks to not be bad. Right. This thing's going to take a while for I think us as Milwaukee Bucks fans to sort of process and digest. I'm definitely not as crestfallen as I was after the Bucks lost in 6 games to the Toronto Raptors in 19. I'm not as crestfallen as I was then, because that Milwaukee Bucks team to me was on the precipice of winning their first championship. Now, I will never forget the elation that I had when the Bucks beat the Suns in that finals. As a matter of fact, I've got a plaque that's still sitting up right there in the Trauma Center studio commemorating that, unbelievable final series in which Giannis was the most dominant player in the NBA for that particular postseason.
Mm-hmm.
That was great. But this does take a while to still process, because as a Bucks fan, I don't want to make knee-jerk reactions too much. My hot takery is really trying to be suppressed right now, because I've got so much fucking hot takery, but I want to suppress it because I know it's emotional. There's going to just have to be some major changes. And what you mentioned, Matt, whether they're complete overhaul changes or if it's changes with the coaching staff and tinkering with the bench lineup, I don't know. But I do think that with Middleton having that player option year, you probably look at moving off of him. Brook Lopez,
he's a free agent.
Does he come back? Depends. And on what kind of contract, because the Bucks gave him what I thought was actually a pretty rich contract a couple of years back, but he lived up to it. I mean, Brook Lopez played up to that contract.
He became a better player overall. You can just see it in just the way he's got better. His outside shot, his defense has always been there because of his height. And the other thing, though, is he's going to be 35, 36 years old. So, I mean, how much do you really want to bring him back at that age?
Well, that's a good question. And this is where I proposition our audience members on Twitter at the Sports Carnival to take this morning's poll question, because I've got a couple of different ways that you could answer it. What should the Bucks do now? Stay with the same team, right? Status quo, run it back next year, trade Chris Middleton, or blow this thing up / keeping Giannis, because keeping Giannis is the obvious thing. Nobody's getting rid of Giannis. It looks like we've got this is the David downstairs. David's been looking forward to checking in with us here on the Sports Carnival. David, thank you very much. Appreciate your follow. He says he's sorry, but it's like the Bucks have never heard of a rebound. Never mind the last 2 games. Giannis missed so many shots, and when it mattered, a bunch of free throws. Look, David, you're not wrong on that. And Giannis's free throw woes last night were pronounced. 10 for 23 from the free throw line. Quick math shows you that that's under 50%. That's not going to get it done. I don't want to look, though, at Giannis's free throw performance, or even Giannis in general, as one of the reasons that the Bucks didn't win this game. I really don't, because Giannis is doing whatever he can in his power to win this. I look at the whole team, the fact that Mike Budenholzer had a really, really, really questionable end of regulation / end of overtime, coaching decision or decisions, makes me open this up to a bit more than Giannis. But I don't disagree with you, David. When you look at Giannis's lack of production from the free throw line and even from the field in a lot of cases, you have to just go, that wasn't great. In game 4, Giannis had a little baby hook down low that if he would have made, the Bucks probably keep themselves, go back up by a point or 2. I can't remember. It was getting really close, and probably hold on to win that game. But last night, I'll tell you what, I put this a lot more on the way that Budenholzer called the end of the game. Why Giannis wasn't on Jimmy Butler under the basket or Brook Lopez. Fuck playing small. It's an out-of-bounds situation. Big guy, jump up, hands in the air. This is coaching 101, right? If I had 10-year-olds out there, the 2 tallest 10-year-olds, one would be guarding the ball, the other would be under the basket. That's it. Right. There's not a lot of math or science that goes into that. That's just basketball 101. So, David, I look at this as a multifaceted issue right now.
I have 2 more thoughts on this going forward for the Bucks, and take her wherever you want to steer this, Captain. I guess Giannis had his free throw problems all year round. They go back to him with when you're playing against the 76ers and the ladder underneath the hoop, blah, blah, blah. And going back to this game, they had more turnovers in fourth quarter and overtime than they had points. So that, I believe, is what one of the answers is. So that's pretty hard to fucking go forward and win a game.
Well, yeah, if you're not going to keep control of the ball, if you're not going to play with urgency, the ball's got energy, and, you want to squeeze that motherfucker and keep it with you as much as you possibly can. There's a lot here. And I like that.
That's Rick Hamilton checking in.
Okay, Rick Hamilton checking in. I like that we've got Rick checking in on this, because, Rick, there is a lot there. Was it schemes? Was it substitutions? Was it lack of timeouts? Was it poor strategy or poor talent? I think that you've got to look at it and say probably a teeny bit of all the talent. I would say they probably had fine talent.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the talent that necessarily was at play.
The strategy and how they use that talent.
Yes. Strategy, how they use that talent. And let's face facts. Sometimes talent while it can be incredible individually, doesn't mesh together in the perfect way, right? Like that's what being a really good coach, a really good GM, a really good, player evaluator does for your team. It gives you the opportunity to make pieces which maybe even the sum of the parts wouldn't be as great as the whole was, which is what you would hope, but taking different talents and being able to mesh them in so they get the most. This is going to be a very, very, very long off season for the Bucks, a very long off season. So Rick, I think that you've probably got a little bit of everything, but probably less on the talent side, more with scheme, substitution, and strategy. At least that's the way that I would see it. I'll take one more on this from Jeff Zelke because he's checking in. He says, fact is, Giannis doesn't get shoved out like Grayson Allen did. No.
Yep.
No. Not the smartest basketball ever played. No.
Not at all.
It was not. And that's another reason that Mike Budenholzer, rightly, okay, because he's a professional. I know that these guys, they're people too. Of course they are. But they've put themselves in this position, and this is what comes with it, right? Mike Budenholzer is going to be under a lot of scrutiny. He's going to be
not the first time he's deserved this scrutiny.
No, it's not. No, it's not. And I like Bud. I really do. I think he's a good coach. Don't get me wrong. You don't win a championship, multiple Coach of the Year awards, take different teams like the Atlanta Hawks and the Milwaukee Bucks to conference championships without being a good coach, right? So Mike Budenholzer is a good coach. But what I saw in this series, and I talked about this with you the other day, the Miami Heat have the better coach.
Right.
Eric Spoelstra is a better coach than Mike Budenholzer. This Miami Heat team is interesting. And Rob Dog, I'm with you. As good as those Knicks looked, I want no part of the Miami Heat. I don't want any part of these guys. It was really tough.
You got to be happy your Lakers are still going too, brother.
Yeah, but they lost last night too.
Yeah, but it ain't over yet.
No, they'll be fine in game 6. Again, if you didn't see the game last night, the Bucks just absolutely crumbled. They had a 16-point lead in regulation in the fourth quarter. End up seeing all that whittled away. Jimmy Butler on an out-of-bounds play with, a half a second left is able to get a shot that he should have never gotten up, as he did, as Jeff Zelke mentioned, push Grayson out of the way, scored 42 points. This is coming off the heels of a 56-point night in Miami the other night. You see Giannis at 38 and 20, but that 10 of 23 from the free throw line is just not going to get it done. And Chris Middleton's 33 points, while fine in stats, don't tell the tale of his lack of impact on the game. And I think Chris Middleton, because he is he is a player that can shoot, can be like almost like a catch and shoot guy, is still going to retain value in this league. His player option will be the last time he gets a contract like that, right? But he will have some value left in this league. So the Damian Lillard trade, I don't think is completely off target. And that was something that we talked about earlier. I don't think it'll happen necessarily without some major moves from the Bucks to give the Blazers some sweetened pot here, but there's maybe not going to be a lot of better options.
There's always those trade blockbusters out there too in the NBA offseason too. So there's a lot of shit to digest coming forward. That's for sure.
My God, it's going to be massive. A lot to digest. And Joe Daguanno, our Green and Gold Insider, will join us here in just a couple of minutes. Before Joe jumps aboard here, I just wanted to bring this up in case you guys didn't watch it yesterday, and we're going to get Joe's takes on not just Rodgers' presser, but what the Packers are going to do here in the draft with his unveiling of his mock draft. But I was just really curious yesterday, who got to Rodgers? Was it Woody Johnson and that COVID money? Did they say that they were going to hold up his family in some darkness retreat if he didn't come to the OTAs or whatever? Because apparently Rodgers is all in. In speaking to reporters, and this is just a couple of snippets from his overall press conference, and speaking to reporters, he said, when asked about playing 1 year, quote, "They definitely gave up some picks for me to be here, so it isn't like this is a one and done in my mind. Fun." He was 90% retired a couple of weeks ago when he was still a Packer. Rodgers, who again did not attend voluntary workouts in Green Bay, said he's planning to participate in most of them with the Jets. Quote, "I want to put my stamp on this offense and the locker room and let these guys know what the expectation is going to be." That's swell. I'm sure that Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs and a lot of the Packers would have appreciated that last year. I mean, hey, Aaron Jones, he's no scrub, and A.J. Dillon. I didn't think these guys were all that bad. And then for Rodgers to say, well, I know that these guys are good, and so I want to be here for them. I don't know. It seems a little hollow to me. So I don't know, like I say, if Woody Johnson or some COVID money got to him, or if he's just doing this because he's just so fucking happy to be out of Green Bay.
I almost threw up 4 times listening to this fucking interview yesterday, man. It was fucking horrible. I can't wait to talk to Joe about it.
Well, let's bring our Green and Gold Insider, Joe Daguanno, onto the program here. Joe, listen.
Could I start this with Joe real quick?
Go ahead.
Hey, Joe, I just want to say it looks like you have a very nice house behind you. I'm very happy that your Zoom, your FaceTime comes in and you have the ability to, talk to us, just kind of like Aaron said, he didn't have that time. So I'm hoping you have that. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, guys, I got no cell coverage.
Should we just FaceTime you?
Yeah, if you could,
Okay.
that'd be much better. So yeah, I don't know, guys. I'm a FaceTimer, so that's it. Listen,
No.
I tell all my employers that too. That if I'm thinking about retiring, just FaceTime me. We can talk through it.
You know what, Joe? There's so much to unpack with this thing. I mean, I don't even know where to start. I guess, Matt, you brought it to a good point here. The FaceTime deal. When asked by the reporters, this was kind of near the end of his presser, I guess. And was it when asked by reporters, what about the Packers trying to communicate? Well, he had limited cell service. They could have tried better. They could have FaceTimed me. Brian Gutekunst was really deft in his deflection of that. He didn't take the bait. He's like, look, not good for us, not good for them. We tried. What did you make of how that land? I mean, how did that land on you? I guess I should say.
Well, that was the circle jerk portion of the presser, and he said the right things for most of it. I mean, he gave a lot of kudos to Green Bay. He said the right things, and talked about Hackett and all those types of things. When it got to that point, it would have been really easy for him to say, you know what, we just didn't connect. And it would have been really easy, but he had to turn it into a circle jerk at the end, which really, in my opinion, tarnished, any good that was built up. And I'm glad that Goody just said, fuck that. I'm not getting into that. He's gone. We are out of salary cap hell. We did not want him here anymore. We got essentially a number one next year, and we moved up 2 spots this year. Let's move on. So I thought Goody did a good job of deflecting that. But yeah, Rodgers at that point, when he talked about the FaceTiming, just again went into the land of Oz, and just it just is like, dude, shut the fuck up. It's there's a couple of people that just need to shut up. Mark Murphy's one of them, and Aaron Rodgers to a point is one of them. And again, it's tiresome, but it's over. And it was over before the draft. And so we've got that coming on today. I thought Green Bay did a hell of a job in getting value back. And when you look at going from 15 to 13, and a lot of people said, Rodgers has a smile on his face again for now. Yeah, I mean, he did look refreshed. I mean, he did look refreshed, and I'll give it to him. And you know what, guys? If he would have come out this whole time, and I want to get back to the value in a second, but if he would have just come out this whole time and said, look, I was burned out in Green Bay. It was time. Everyone's cool with it. I mean, no one would have bitched about that. But to play all these games with the darkness retreat and everything else, it's just fucked up. But the value he got, let's look at 15 to 13 first and foremost. According to Jimmy Johnson's trade chart, that's worth 100 points. All right, 100 points in trade value. And so that's impressive. Some people said, well, what is that worth? I'm like, that's a lot, especially in the first round. So you get that. He plays 60. Here was the big kicker for me. The Jets don't have to win a goddamn thing for that draft choice next year to turn from a number 2 to a number 1. All Rodgers has to do is play a little over 50% of the games.
Which is different than the Brett Favre one, because the Brett Favre conditional 4th round pick would have moved to a first if the Jets had made it to a Super Bowl. That was the caveat then.
Yeah, I thought just to get him to play without any reflection on the record, I thought it was huge. I thought Goody did a nice job. I thought, and look, the Packers are going to be out of salary cap hell next year. They're going to save $21 million. It's Bakhtiari's last year on his contract next year. He's not going anywhere this year, but his cap number next year is $40 million. You're going to save $21 million on the cap by cutting him. They're going to be in good shape. And whether or not Jordan Love is the answer, now we will find that out. And DC, you and I have been talking about this since draft day. And now we're going to find out if Goody really knew what he was doing. Now, it was an interesting article that came out, and it was one of the Green Bay writers. It might have been Silverstein or Doherty, and I will retweet this out because I did so yesterday. He talked about the quarterbacks available after Jalen Hurts to today. All right, so after Jalen Hurts gets drafted, and you looked at the quarterbacks that went in order until today. And again, obviously the quarterbacks haven't come off the board today. So it was a really shitty ass list of quarterbacks from after Jalen Hurts to today. And the only one out of that list that really stood out to me was Trevor Lawrence.
Okay.
And so everyone else on that list, so again, I'm not saying the door has swung the other way for me with Jordan Love. I still have a lot of doubts with this kid. I've had doubts since Thursday morning of the draft in 2020 when you asked me what would piss me off, and I said drafting Jordan Love. So I've got a lot of doubts, but when you look at the list and you break it down, because at some point you would have had to have drafted a quarterback. All right. At some point you would have done that. So, look, I give Goody credit where credit is due. He's got some big balls, and now he's throwing them out there. And we'll see where this thing plays out. But you know what? Aaron's a Jet. Brett Favre was a Jet. I can't fucking wait till 2038 when Jordan Love gets traded to the Jets.
Well, I think I'm going to be more interested to see which welfare department Aaron Rodgers and his cohorts are going to try to defraud in California when he's, when it's all said and done and he's going back there, because that would really put a button on this thing. Matt and I were talking about it yesterday.
Well, you need dick pics too.
That's good.
For sure.
That'll happen in New York.
Right.
Just give him a chance to get a massage. I mean, look, Favre, in Green Bay, you knew what he was up to, right? And, there are some people that, listen, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but there are some people that think Aaron Rodgers has carried a beard around a time or two. So who knows? Maybe in New York, Aaron decides to let it all hang out. I would be all for it. We have never had an openly gay star quarterback. I would applaud him. And if Aaron wants to come out, the same thing I asked Lindsey Graham once on a show I had in Las Vegas, if he wouldn't just come out, damn it, and finally become the first openly gay Republican senator. I thought it was a really good moment. He didn't think so. His publicist called me all sorts of fucking bad names. I just thought it was a good question. And I thought it was a time and place in which the moment, you need guys to rise to the moment. And Aaron's going to be in a good spot in New York. This might be one of the reasons that he had longed to take a bite of the Big Apple. We don't know. And I'm okay with that. Somebody does in their private life, Joe, like Seinfeld said, is their own business. And for a man to be in his late 30s, thin, neat, single, Rodgers just might be in the right place in New York. So I wish him all the best. He might find love and happiness, Broadway shows and Broadway Joes.
Oh man. But here's the thing though. I want to know, because it is draft day, how many fucking people went to Aaron's birthday party? That's what I want to know, because and I'm going on the record. I did not go to Bo Callahan's 21st birthday party either. So I'm just letting you all know that from a draft day perspective, I too was not there. So I just don't know, man. I got the invite and I said, fuck that dude. I'm not going.
You're busy, Joe. I can see you're traveling. You're actually on the road somewhere. It looks like you're in a hotel room.
I'm in South Bend, Indiana. I got touchdown Jesus, like literally 3 blocks from me right now.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk draft, Joe. While we've got you this morning, this is something that we actually were hoping to focus on more. We thought this Rodgers situation would have been dealt with quite a while ago. Needless to say, it did happen before the draft, and you mentioned that 100-point value upgrade. So I've just been writing notes for a while here about what my possible thoughts on the Packers draft was going to be this year. One of our questions is on our Facebook group page, where our audience members think the Packers should go with this particular draft, what position they should pick. But I want you to give me your overview, if you would, of your mock draft, because I was telling Matt, you kind of centered these in the last few years to like one mock draft where you used to do a number of them. So let's kind of run through that first. I mean, what do you have the Packers doing at 13? And I guess next in the second round, do they have 2 picks in the second then?
Yep. They got 2 picks in the second. So here's real quick. I want to give you the guys more than likely that will be there. All right. So I'm going to give you a pool of guys that I think are going to be there at 13 or close to it. Peter Skoronski, the guard out of Northwestern. Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame. Of course, again, like I said, I'm basically here in the shadows of touchdown Jesus. Dalton Kincaid, tight end from Utah. Nolan Smith, the outside linebacker from Georgia. Darnell Wright, the tackle from Tennessee. Wide receiver out of OSU, Jackson Smith, Najigba. And then, the list starts getting pretty slim from there. Miles Murphy, outside linebacker from Clemson. Lucas Van Ness, outside backer from Iowa, Broderick Jones, tackle from Georgia. And so those are the guys that are probably going to be there. And I am going, and the irony, and the national media is going to have a heyday with this if it happens, because I'm going with Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver out of OSU. And I'll tell you why in a second. But, I'm so sick of Packer fandom and national media talking about the lack of first-round draft choice wide receivers for the Packers while Rodgers was there. Look, the list of names that they got in the second round, Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings, James Jones, Randall Cobb, Devontae Adams. I mean, fuck that narrative. But it will go off the charts if Smith-Njigba is the guy. Now, here's why I like him. And it's a little bit like another former OSU wide receiver in a different light, because what they said about Chris Carter back in the day is all he does is catch touchdowns. All right? All JSN does is catch passes. I mean, this is a guy who's probably the best route runner coming out. And from a catch percentage standpoint, one of the fewest drop percentages out there, especially now. Again, last year, remove it from the map because last year he had the hamstring injury, only played 3 games. But this is a classic slot receiver. Reminds me a lot of Jarvis Landry. And again, I think, how do you make Jordan Love comfortable? All right, you make him comfortable with an offensive line. All right, you've invested now a shit ton of money. And again, you're still paying Bakhtiari a lot of money, but Packer fans forget, you just invested in Elgton Jenkins, all right? And you look at what Runyon's done. You're paying Yosh Nijman on the restricted tender. You got Josh Myers at center. So do the Packers need a tackle? Yeah, and I think they're going to take a tackle later on in this draft. But I don't see them making that move in the first round this year. And again, it looks like Foreman's Funhouse talked about Addison out of USC, and I like him too. But here's where you look at how JSN can fit in this offense. And by the way, the other way you help Jordan Love is with a tight end. I see Green Bay making that move in the second round.
So, and that was interesting, because the one kid, you mentioned him from Notre Dame, I forget his name right now, but he's
Michael Mayer.
Yeah, yep. The top tight end prospect. So, because I agree with you, you make an offensive, you make a young quarterback most comfortable, great slot receiver. I think the outside's going to be covered. I think Christian Watson's going to be fine. I think Romeo Doubs is okay on the other side as well there. But the slot receiver, I like that, Matt, a lot. I also like that tight end because, look, I look at a guy like Travis Kelce, and I'm not saying that that's him, but there have been some comps to a guy like him. And just the way that Travis Kelce is able to wreck a defense, right? Like, he's too big for a defensive back to be able to really tackle down easily. So it's going to take him more than just a safety or a corner to get him. He's too fast for the guys on the line to really be able to run with, or even those linebackers. So, Kelce just becomes a matchup nightmare. That kid from Notre Dame reminds me of that in that particular fashion. If, in fact, the Packers selected him as opposed to the wide receiver from OSU, would you be okay with that?
I'd be okay with that. And actually, I like Meyer a lot more than I like Kincaid. Because
you think he goes sooner, though?
What's that?
Do you think Meyer goes sooner? Do you think there's a team there in the top 10, maybe?
No, I think he's going to be on. I think he'll be available when Green Bay drafts at 13. So here's, people are saying Kincaid's got a higher ceiling, and I get that. They compare him to Mark Andrews from Baltimore.
Oh,
but when I look at Mayer's tape and I look at Kincaid's tape, Kincaid is essentially a blown up wide receiver. All right, and in the NFL, the Noah Fants of the world, if we look at a guy, a comparison there. But I like a guy, whether it be TJ Hawkinson or back, I'll compare Mayer to Gronk, because I think he's got that inline ability.
Sure.
And I think that's what and again, the tight end position, near and dear to my heart, because I had both my boys play that position. And so, it's my favorite position on the football field. And if you had a game changer, you make that move. Here's where I'm going, though. And again, I like JSN in the first round. Now I'm going to jump to the second round, and I like Sam Laporta, the tight end out of Iowa, in the second round. And so here's where you kind of look at, and again, DC, I already sent you my whole mock, so just FYI, you got the whole thing.
I'll check my email.
Yeah, but there's certain programs. There's certain college programs that you can get a position from, and they're going to be well schooled. All right. OSU, there's no question, wide receivers. When you look at Olave and Wilson from last year, and you look at JSN this year, and just the lineage that they've got, that those receivers are pro ready. The other area I look at from the Big Ten, Wisconsin offensive line, we all get that. Iowa tight ends. I mean, if you look at Iowa tight ends, and again, I think Laporta would be a hell of a pick in that second round. And again, now you've got Jordan Love. Now you've got Aaron Jones and Dillon. You've got Dobbs and you've got Watson, JSN, and you've got Laporta. Now you've got a young offense to build around with a young quarterback. So that's where I went. And again, just with that other second round pick that the Packers have, I went with the edge rusher out of Kansas State, Ndukade Uzama. There we go. Sorry. So Ndukade Uzama, the edge rusher out of Kansas State. And when you look at edge rushers for the Green Bay Packers, you got to look at size. And there's a lot of speed guys out there that are in the 230 to 240 range. But you look at Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith. And Green Bay likes to be able to stop the run with their edge rushers as well. So you're looking for guys with size. And this kid out of Kansas State has that size. So I went wide receiver, edge, and tight end with my first three picks. I got them taking the safety in the third round, the safety out of Alabama, Jordan Battle. And so you're looking at, again, positions of need, wide receiver, edge rusher, tight end, and safety in those first three rounds. And again, if the draft comes out and you can get the wide receiver from OSU and you can get Laporta and then you can fill in the edge and safety positions, I think Goody's got to be feeling pretty good about it.
So, guys, let me ask you this question. I'm going to throw out a wild card because I agree the positions of need are the ones that you mentioned there. And, Matt, I think that's kind of a consensus from just looking at the Packers depth chart, right? Your Bears need offensive line help. The Packers need offensive help. And I think that for a young quarterback is really crucial. What if the unthinkable happens and a guy like Anthony Richardson is not drafted? Joe, this isn't Jordan Love once again, but and then I want to get, Matt, your take on this. And I know this would probably not happen, but we've seen stranger things happen. Mm-hmm. If Anthony Richardson is there at 13 for the Green Bay Packers, what do you do if you're Brian Gutekunst?
Well, first of all, we have seen stranger things happen because we saw a quarterback out of Cal in 2005 who was the number one pick slip down to 24. So, if you're there, and again, and I don't see this happening, but if you're there and he's there, you trade down. Somebody's going to want that pick. Because if Goody doubles down again on a quarterback without even seeing Jordan Love on the field for a season, Goody just fucked himself. He basically said, you know what? My legacy was tied to Jordan Love. Now I just fucked that too. So you trade back down. If he's there and you got a quarterback needy team, you trade down. And guys, it would not surprise me at all if Goody does trade down, regardless of if there's a quarterback there or not.
What would you do, Matt? If Richardson was there and considering all of what Joe just mentioned, what would you do?
I'd trade him if he came to the Bears at 9. I'd draft him, Richardson, and trade Justin Fields. If he was still on the board at 9 for the Bears, that's what I do, to be honest with you.
Yeah, if you're the Bears, though, that might not be a bad idea because you've seen Justin Fields already. And actually, if you had him, you might even be able to keep Justin Fields because
they're both on rookie contracts.
Yeah, you don't need to pay this guy and then trade him a year later. Yeah. I don't anticipate that happening. I actually think that, you might see Anthony Richardson. You and I were talking about this a couple of days ago. He could go as high as 2.
I think he should be the first quarterback off the board, in my opinion.
He won't be, but he could be. I mean, he could be, right? He probably won't be. But
quarterback's beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
You know what? And it's like looking at, going to a strip club and saying, I like the blonde, I like the brunette. They all have the same qualities, but they're a little bit different. And so it really is kind of, beauty is in the eye of the beholder when you look at quarterbacks.
I'm a glitter and a perfume guy myself. So, I mean, depending on what glitter, what perfume, that can really, change things for me. This is going to be fascinating for the Packers. The one thing that I don't really feel consumed with as far as like, on a nervous scale is the Packers fucking this thing up. I really don't, because they put themselves in, I think, a pretty enviable position. You've got 13. The last time the Packers were at 13, they took Rashawn Gary. That's turned out okay. Rashawn didn't have a great first year, didn't have had an okay second year, popped in year 3. And, last year got injured a bit, but that was a pretty good pick. At 13, the Packers could very well trade down. I mean, that's still very much in the possibility and pick up even more picks. If they traded down and say they were offered, I don't know, something like 19 and a second round pick, another second round pick, and you've then got 3 picks in the second, and you're at 19 or something, or even 16, I would probably take a stab at that. Is there any one position player, Joe, though, if Brian Gutekunst makes this draft call tonight, that you would, much like I asked you 4 years ago, not be excited about? This would be the one player or position that you're like, oh, bad decision.
You know what? It's a great question. And you know, in 2020, I was adamant about Jordan Love. I was adamant. You know, the one player, when I looked at the list, obviously, that we went through again, I think the one player that I would say, well, 2 players. And again, I'm not as passionate about it as I was with Love, but I would say Skoronski, who is the offensive lineman out of Northwestern. And the only reason I say that is he's probably a better guard than he is a tackle. And to pick a guard at 13, I don't think that's the best move to make. And then I would go the other offensive lineman out there, and that's Darnell Wright, the tackle from Tennessee. And again, neither one of these, is as passionate I was with Jordan Love. The thing I don't like about Wright is he primarily played right tackle at Tennessee. You know, you can take a left tackle, I think, and project him to right tackle in the NFL. Right. I don't think you can take a right tackle, though, and project him to left tackle. I think it's just it's a different position. So if they went Skoronski or Wright, I'd probably be a little bit more like, that's a reach for me. Now, if you trade back and those guys are there at 19 or 20 or whatever the case may be, then I'm okay with it. But at 13 to take either a guard or a right tackle doesn't make any sense to me. So again, not quite as passionate about 2020 as I was with Jordan Love, because the tape Jordan Love's last year of college football, he led the FBS in interceptions.
Yeah.
And I get all the stuff out there that he had a change in OC and lost his talent, et cetera, et cetera. But generational talents, NFL quarterbacks have the ability to rise above that. And you never want to see a kid go sophomore year here, junior year here. You just, especially at the quarterback position. So again, it's a great question, DC, and I think if they picked one of those 2 linemen, I'd be like, that's kind of a reach, guys.
Could I throw 2 names for you, Joe? Could I throw out 2 names for you? You didn't mention. And you talked about a big going out there, but 2 names that you should be very familiar with. Obviously, being the Badger guy. In one draft, they have Green Bay taking Lucas Van Ness, the defensive end out of Iowa.
Yep.
Others also being the Zay Flowers, the wide receiver out of Boston College. Where would you be on either of those guys?
I like them both. I think, Zay Flowers, Tyreek Hill comes to mind. And so there's explosiveness there. Lucas Van Ness, the dude's a stud. I mean, his nickname is Hercules. He's basically, he and Rashawn Gary, I would have zero problem with either one of those guys. And so, again, if they pick a guy like, again, the question with Zay Flowers is size. All right. So does he have the size? But, when you're fast and you don't get hit like Tyreek Hill, size doesn't matter at that point. So I wouldn't have an issue at all with either one of those. And again, I think looking at the board, I think going back to it, there's a lot of guys, this draft is the meat of it is 15 to 50. And so if Green Bay did want to trade back down, I'd have zero problem with that. It would be interesting to me if they traded up to get someone. I don't see that happening. But if there is someone there, that could be an interesting play for Goody as well. But DC, you put yourself in a real, you said it, that the Packers have put themselves in a good position. And I think, again, that they can really rebuild very quickly.
So do I. I don't think the Packers were all that far off last year. I thought the main problem with the Packers last year, at least the way that it landed on me, was Aaron Rodgers. And I know the Jets had quarterback problems of their own. I just thought Rodgers wasn't very good. And when I saw him in Green Bay against Chicago, I saw a quarterback who didn't have the arm, didn't have the zip, didn't have the mobility. Now, he had some moments in the season, which he will, but I thought that was largely the issue for the Packers last year. And the fact that he was out on the team made it really feel consequential on that way. I just threw this up here because you mentioned if the Packers did trade up. Well, they're sitting there at 13. So, this is the top 10 mock by Yahoo last week. Would any of these guys be a guy? I mean, obviously, maybe the first couple, but would any of these guys be the ones that you would look at and say, I would trade up for him?
The 2 edge rushers, Will Anderson Jr. and Tyree Wilson. Those would be the 2 guys that I would say, if those are your top 10, I would move up for. Jalen Carter, too many question marks for me.
Okay.
The off the field stuff, and it's not just the off the field stuff. It's, he came unprepared to the combine, and he came unprepared to his pro day. And in my opinion, off the field is okay. I smoked some dope. That's off the field. When you fuck up your when you fuck up your pro day or your combine, that's on the field. That's on the field stuff. So I'd stay away from Jalen Carter. I think, again, if you went cornerback, either Gonzalez or Witherspoon, I just don't think they need to make that move to get one of those guys, especially with Rasul Douglas. Now, it sounds that Stokes, that injury may be a little bit more of an issue. So do I see cornerback at some point in this draft? Probably yes, but I wouldn't trade up for him. I've already talked about Skoronski, and again, looking at the quarterbacks, I don't see Green Bay making a move up for a quarterback. Now, I will say this. I do have Green Bay taking a quarterback later, and the quarterback I have them taken, because I think they're going to get back to the Ron Wolf days of drafting a quarterback every year, is I've got them taking the Penn State quarterback, Sean Clifford. And so later in the draft, I see Green Bay doing that. And again, Ron Wolf made a lot of money and a lot of good things happen with Matt Hasselbeck and Mark Brunell and Aaron Brooks and Ty Detmer. And so I think now that Green Bay is into the young quarterback phase of their rebuild, or of their next step, I think you're going to see those quarterbacks being drafted again. So, it's good to have the Rodgers thing behind. I love draft day. Again, DC, this goes back to, the first draft we started working together was the Jair Alexander draft in 2018. And so, I love, and again, I think Goody has a real opportunity. And I think that 15-13 move was a big part of that trade that I think people underestimate.
Well, and Joe, we'll just kind of leave with this, because there's just, again, so much to unpack with the draft. And I want to go ahead and recalibrate next week when we have you on Monday, what we saw. And then also I want to, further some discussions with the Bucs, but I don't want to get us off on a tangent too far. But there is something about, watching this Packer team, right, with this kind of draft capital, also being a pick above. Now you've got the Patriots a pick above the Jets, also kind of sticking it there to the Jets just a little bit, because who knows what Belichick and company will do with that pick at 14. This, I think, has worked out well for Gutekunst. And I know that not everybody, especially Jeff Schneider Tax and Accounting, huge Rodgers fan, not everybody is happy with the way that Brian Gutekunst has handled this Aaron Rodgers situation. I'll just remind everybody that Rodgers in 2018-19 was in a decline. Mike McCarthy was the first Packer coach in the history of the Packers to get fired mid-season. Okay, that was unprecedented. He definitely looked like he was getting old and frail. He had broken his collarbone. He had the clavicle. So Brian Gutekunst has always done, in my estimation, what he needed to do. Is it always going to land with fans as the most popular decision? No, but just like being a parent, this, oftentimes you do things for your kids they don't agree with, but that's why you're the parent and they're the kid. They're not supposed to be making these decisions yet. And that's what you do when you're a parent. You have to make some decisions that aren't necessarily popular, but they go into the best interest of the team. And I don't know. I find Brian Gutekunst and the job that he's done to be really, really on brand with the Packers. I say a solid B plus, maybe even A- grade for me so far with him as the GM of the team.
Well, and I'll leave you guys with this. Two thoughts. The grade is going to be determined by Jordan Love. Period. End of discussion. The Goody trade, that's his legacy. I do want to say this, that, and I heard you guys talking about the Bucs earlier, and this team needs a makeover.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say it needs a makeover. I like Bud, but that loss, this series loss, it's on Bud, it's on Middleton, and it's on Holiday. It's on your two top players. Giannis is obviously the best, but Bud, not calling timeouts, et cetera, et cetera. This team needs a makeover. And look, Giannis is only 28 years old.
Yes.
He's not going anywhere.
Nope.
So again, the sky is falling on the Bucs franchise that they're never going to win another title. It's going to be like Rodgers all over again in 2010-11. No, but they do need a makeover, and that was ugly. Miami, and I thought Giannis said it best. Miami played to beat us. We were playing to win a championship. We got ahead of ourselves. I thought it was a great quote.
Well, and Joe, I never liked this matchup. I'd been calling this one from the beginning. I did not like the Bucs versus the Heat, and I give the Heat a ton of credit. They were the better team. They were more prepared, as Giannis mentioned. They were better coached. Eric Spoelstra out-coached Mike Budenholzer, and it really showed up. Joe, as always, my brother, I appreciate you. Thanks for spending so much time with us this morning. I can't wait to see what happens tonight. I know that we're going to be back and forth. I'm going to check my email. I'm going to put together your mock. I'm going to tweet that out as well. Thanks for everything, brother. We'll talk to you on Monday, okay?
Don't have too good of a time in South Bend, Joe.
You know what? I'll go talk to Mayor and myself right now and get an inside scoop. I might even go sit in his house tonight.
Do it. I think you should. Get on this thing, man.
There we go. All right. Peace out, boys.
Talk to you Monday, man.
Now more than ever, if you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps an investment property, you need a full-time dedicated real estate agent who is up to date on all the latest trends and analysis and is ready to give you the kind of service that you deserve. That's why the official real estate agent and the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival is Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps you are a seasoned investor, call the official real estate agent partner of the Sports Carnival, Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate.
Do you have a wedding, anniversary party, or bat mitzvah coming up in your life? Then you need Hey Duda DJ services featuring Neil Duda, the Midwest Eminem.
No doubt about it, I'm been hammered, and that's every day. Brand so cloudy, dog.
Dropping sick beats while you enjoy your treats. No party is too big or too small. Quinceañeras, graduations, ice cream socials, or cockhold parties. Whatever the celebration, Hey Duda is rocking the foundation.
Here we go again. Back with all our friends. Here comes the pain.
Neil Duda.
Yeah, baby, here comes the pain. Neil Duda's DJ services. Man, I tell you what, those cuckold parties that Matt LaFleur had been attending all those years in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, those might be over. Like, Matt LaFleur actually might be able to coach the Packers now. But like Joe Daguanno mentioned to us, or maybe it was Mike Schmidt the other day.
Mike Schmidt.
Yeah, Mike Schmidt. He can't be just pumping up the crowd. He's actually got to coach him. Speaking of coaches, Joe left us with the Mike Budenholzer might need to get fired thing. I am largely in that same camp. I'm trying to tamp down my hot takery this morning after the Bucks blow a fucking 16-point lead in regulation. But I don't disagree with Joe in total. I'm going to tell you, our Twitter followers at the Sports Carney, get my mouse work back up here. They think this thing needs to be blown up. 50% of respondents say blow this thing up. Keep Giannis, of course. 25% apiece for run it back with this team, actually, and trade just Chris Middleton. But I think there needs to be some major changes. I think Mike Budenholzer might unfortunately have to be a part of that. We'll always remember Mike Budenholzer as the coach that helped the Bucks win, the first championship with Giannis. But Giannis's career is so still relatively in its not infancy, but it's still in its mid-period. You've got many more years with Giannis, many more years with him as the player that you can build around to win a championship, but you can't let seasons like this slip by. I mean, you just can't. And Mike Budenholzer, unfortunately, is going to have to get a lot of this blame because no timeouts, bad situational play calling, and just like literally having Eric Spoelstra look like he was conducting a master class on coaching while you're over there fucking twiddling your thumbs. This is not going to look and age well for Mike Budenholzer.
Well, and you and I have been talking about timing, or especially when we were out in Vegas, with it being impeccable. And I really, really like your Nick Nurse take, man, because that timing just seems really way too good to be true.
It really does. And if you're the Bucks, how long do you wait to pounce on something like that? Because he won't be a free agent coach for very long.
Right.
Again, if you missed the game last night, Jimmy Buckets scored 42 points. 42 points. He had 56 the other night, tying a playoff record for the fourth most in league history. Giannis, 38-20, didn't shoot great from the line, didn't shoot great from the field. Middleton had 33. Those are all fine numbers. Giannis, I don't really blame too much, though. He played through injury, right? Like, he had a back contusion that could have been way worse than it was. He struggled through his injury to come back and play. He gave it a valiant effort. Mm-hmm. Awesome. That's what you want to see. Like, Anthony Davis would have been out for the next 6 months if what happened to him what happened to Giannis happened to him. So Giannis is a dog, and I love this dude. He'll win a championship again for the Bucks, but they've got to do something to change the dynamic, the makeup of this team. And I think Middleton will be a part of it. I think that Budenholzer will be a part of it. I don't see that Drew Holiday will be a part of it because Drew Holiday was actually, one of the only effective defenders against Jimmy Butler. That's, again, a coaching mistake.
Right. If
you know that Drew Holiday is guarding this guy better than anybody on the court, fucking stick him on there. And by the way, tall guys, out of bounds plays basketball. I don't want to be Captain Obvious, but
Yeah, basketball 101 right there.
Uh-huh. Captain Obvious is in the house, and he's like telling you, put the 2 tallest guys in the court out there. By the way, Giannis jumps like 8 feet in the air. I might have had him under the basket. Just, me. Or Brooke Lopez. Pick your poison.
Right. It makes no sense. Everything that he did at the end of the game, not the timeout. Sorry. Yeah, that's basically what it was. It just sums up the last 2 games of the Bucks season right there.
Okay, well, I want to do a quick overtime because I want to check our Facebook poll.
Regulation time is up.
What the hell is a flux capacitor?
Engage overtime. Now. P.S. Soylent Green is people.
PPS. Corporate processed food is Soylent Green.
Lunch anywhere other than the recovery room because processed food is Soylent Green. Just throwing that out there. Real news, fake news, something. Okay, Facebook poll question this morning. We had this up here for our Facebook group members, getting close to 500 now. What do you think the Packers should do position-wise with tonight's NFL draft? We've already got, Joe Daguanno's take. He likes the wide receiver out of OSU. He could see the Packers taking the kid Meyer from Notre Dame, being okay with that, and could even see a couple of trade ups or downs being in the cards for the Packers. What do our group members think about the Packers and where they should go tonight? There are multiple options there on the Facebook group page.
Yeah, there's so many options. I find this absolutely awesome and comical at the same time. 55% is leading the way with wide receivers.
Okay.
So I really like that. Tie for 16%, both. That's the tight end and the D line.
Okay.
And after that, you're getting down to nothing. 6% on the O line, and 16% for a D end and a tight end. D line and O line are 6%, 1% for cornerback.
Yeah. And yeah, Foreman, I know that Giannis was covering the inbound guy. You switch him to the underneath guy. You put in Brooke Lopez. Okay. Put the other tall guy in. Okay. And then that's what I mean. It gives you an option. All right. I think that probably wide receiver is a good way to go here. The tight end position, though, for me, if the kid from Notre Dame is there, Meyer, I might really strongly consider that because who's the tight end for the Packers right now?
Yeah,
you don't have one. They didn't re-sign Bobby Tunyon. Josiah DeGuara is he's almost like a H-back, right? More than he is a tight end. Mercedes Lewis. Oh God, the great vaunted Mercedes Lewis. I like Mercedes Lewis. Don't get me wrong.
Going to the Jets anyways?
I don't know. He's an offensive lineman. Mercedes Lewis doesn't catch passes. Okay. He's not that kind of tight end.
Yeah, he's 50 years old too.
Right. But he's an offensive lineman. He's a blocking tight end.
Yeah.
That's not what the Packers need. I would really like to see that guy from Notre Dame, because if the Packers could magically stumble upon a tight end, which they tried to get with Jimmy Graham back in the day. Remember how fucking bad that worked out with Jimmy Graham? People forget Jimmy Graham was a part of the Packers for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if the Packers could burst with a Jimmy Graham type player, when Jimmy Graham was playing for the Saints, right? This is exactly what a guy like Jordan Love would love to have, right? You've got an outside threat with Watson and Dobbs. Then you've got a guy like this, the tight end coming out from the middle of the field. That is a Gronkowski, an Aaron Hernandez, unfortunately, but a fairly decent comp,
I was Kellen Moore Sr., but I don't know how long you want to go down the road.
Well, Kellen Moore Sr. a little bit. Even Kellen Moore Jr., before he raped everybody, was really, really good too. There's just, I think for the Packers, a lot of ways to go. I wouldn't be upset with the wide receiver, a tight end, the offensive linemen that aren't getting a ton of votes right now. And I agree with Joe, could probably be picked up later. But the fact that you've got Bakhtiari as a left tackle already, he mentioned Josh Nyman, he mentioned Elton Jenkins, he mentioned John Runyon Jr. The Packers offensive line is actually pretty good. Now, later rounds, you stock up with these guys.
Sure.
If you go later rounds, you start putting beef on the team just to have it, because somebody gets injured, somebody twists an ankle, somebody pulls a hamstring. You want that. I mean, John Runyon was a 4th, 5th, 6th round pick before. I mean, his dad was good in the NFL. We didn't know exactly how good he would be. I liked that pick at the time. So I think the Packers can go a lot of different ways. I like wide receiver to answer our poll question. I do like the tight end position myself, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And for Packer fans and non-Packer fans that want to watch tonight's NFL draft, it's not like it was years before where we had to stay up till 11 o'clock at night to watch this thing, and I'd never hang out with you because I had to get up at 2:45. This thing's going to be like, we'll have the Packer pick in by 8:30.
It's kind of like watching baseball nowadays.
Yeah, it'll be faster.
Yeah,
it'll be a lot faster.
I got this one for you, and I don't know which mock draft or what board you're going off of, but how many quarterbacks go in the top 10 tonight?
Top 10?
Yeah.
I'm going to say probably 2.
Really? You're just going with 2?
Well, Will Levis is not good. And when not that he's bad, but Will Levis, if you look at the Jordan Love comparison that Joe Daguanno was making, had a very good sophomore year, junior year. He was throwing interceptions all over the field, right? His motion's a bit tight for me. He's athletic enough, but he's not like a super freak athletically. He looks big. Then you've got CJ Stroud. He was kind of looked at as a number 1 pick. Now we're seeing him in some mocks fall all the way to like 14, 15, maybe to like the Patriots. So like what's going on there? Anthony Richardson, sure. Hendon Hooker sure doesn't feel like he's going to be a top 10 pick. I haven't really heard a lot of smoke around him. So I think probably 2.
I'm going with 4.
Okay. I'm going to go 2. So I'm going to say under 4.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, man. At least gives us something else to look forward to because you never know what happens in the first 10 picks of the draft, usually. That's for sure. So
yeah, it's going to be
Foreman's
great. Foreman says 3. I think 3's realistic. I mean, I could see Will Levis, Bryce Young, and Anthony Richardson going in the top 10. I could. I'm just thinking about this, and this is a mock that has Arizona already traded out of it. Arizona's at 3. It's not the Titans, right? So this is a mock that has trades in it. So Arizona's 3. If they do make a trade out, maybe Will Levis goes there, but like when we talked about this before, and Breacher's saying the same thing, 3 quarterbacks. I think 3 could be a good number. 2 to 3, I don't see 4 though. I just think that like we were talking about the other day, a lot of smoke, right? Like this is the time for liars.
Yep, lying season.
Lying season also includes, man, this is a great quarterback. This guy's really, really good. When meanwhile, you want to take Will Anderson from Alabama.
Yep.
You want to take Jalen Carter.
Exactly.
I think Houston's going defense. I don't think they take a quarterback at 2.
I think they go defense or they trade the pick.
I think they're going defense. Matter of fact, you want to bet on this tonight? Cool. BetUS.com. Enter promo code Carnival. Pick up 125% free play money on deposit and make these wagers. Use that free money to make your first wager so you feel like you've really got some skin in the game, but yet not that much skin really after all. We're going to step out. Matt and I have to go open up the Recovery Room Bar and Grill. 7th and Mississippi Street at 11 o'clock. Come and see us. It's Thursday, baby. You know what that means. Euros are going to be on the spit. We'll also have our prime rib special. Come and see us. Open at 11. And again, tonight, the NFL draft. I don't know exactly what time that starts. We'll start partying probably about 6:37, and then we'll start seeing all the festivities. Adam Schefter making wild proclamations from his phone, all sorts of stuff. It's going to be a great time.
Sounds like a plan, brother. Peace.
Peace.